Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting the DIPD and myself to this meeting, the meeting of a great family of political foundations which work for the global promotion of democracy and for democratic parties in particular. My plan for my intervention is firstly to give you an impression of our new institute. What are we doing? What are the activities which we plan to engage in? What's the role of this institution? What's the role of the political parties in Denmark? And in particular, what's the role of the Liberal Party, which I represent on the board of DIPD. As I said, we have just started, which I'll come back to. I'm the chairman of the board, appointed by the Danish Parliament as a representative of the Liberal Party. So my plan is to take you through a presentation of DIPD and to give you some perspectives of our activities, and I hope that could be a contribution to the discussion afterwards. We realize that DIPD is still, as we've been called, the new kid on the block. So I appreciate this opportunity to spread a little knowledge about our raison d'etre. I'll highlight some of the central aspects of our vision, principles, and strategy. We are basically a national institute which initiates its own programs, and we're an institute which can support the building up of relations between Danish parties and sister party or partner parties in developing countries. DIPD was established just over 1 year ago. We have already launched 2 projects by the Institute, and 5 of the political parties have begun their own undertakings based on economic support of the Institute. Personally, I couldn't imagine that you can believe in democracy and that you can live in a democracy if you do not feel sort of passionately about democracy and the role of political parties. And you cannot have these strong feelings without having a wish to share this privilege with fellow citizens or in other parts of the world. And our mission is to complement the general Danish development strategy of Parliament and government with investments in the participation of our political parties in emerging democracies. Because in our view, political parties are absolutely a necessary part of any well-functioning democracy. We believe that we should contribute to developing political parties because political parties are essential to a democracy. Political parties can offer what you could call a consolidated approach to the totality of political, economic, and social issues which any country face. Parties can offer a voice to different sections of society, to different groups of the electorate, and parties can educate and recruit politicians, civil servants, and they can help building up political consciousness among citizens in general. Parties can also, and that's a very important thing, balance the powers of presidents, ministers, and the executive branch in general. We in DIPD has been given the mandate to, as I said, complement the general Danish development efforts by supporting the building up of parties as an integral part of new democracies, and we'll do this in selected developing countries. The Institute is established by an act in the Parliament, so we support the cooperation with political parties and capacity building of democratic parties in developing countries where Denmark has or has had development programs. As I said, this can be done by the Institute itself or by support of sister party activities run by the Danish parties. But in addition to that, we could also, if we wanted to, support independent media in these countries, think tanks, non-political organizations that take part in the promotion of democracy in these developing democracies that want to create a multi-party system. We can also support other Danish Danish actors than political parties, NGOs, youth organizations, etc. It's very vital for us that in doing this we should and we want to cooperate with other international institutions and partners. To begin with, our budget amounts to 75 million Danish kroner, which corresponds to approximately 10 million euros for the period of 2010 to 2012. And since we haven't spent that much money, so far we have really lots of funds for the last part of the period. Half of the money goes into activities of the Institute and half to the political parties according to their size in Parliament. The principles of the activities that we support go a long way in answering what was the challenge of this discussion. How can we promote democracy? And in the case of DIPD, the relevant question is, how can we promote political parties in a multi-party democracy? We have set up a number of principles which we hope will guide us in the right direction when it comes to creating value added for the countries and the political parties at the receiving end of our activity, as well as for our sponsors, which is the Danish Parliament and government. So we have some guidelines of our activities which we will judge future plans and programs on. First of all, they should contribute to the building up of democratic capacity in society as a whole and in the parties. They should help to attain this sort of in a long-term perspective. All our activities should take as the outset something which is demanded locally. It's not the Danish parties that should come up with good ideas. They should be based on local demand. It's important that we see our activities in the broad framework of Danish activities in developing countries. We've decided to select a very limited number of partner countries so that we do not spread our few resources too thinly. We always say that our activities must be based on thorough analysis, and we should realize that you always take huge risks when you're involved in these activities. The last thing is very important to remember and always to explain that to our sponsors and to the press and the general public. It's also very important that we learn from general development efforts that you must always be able to set up very clear goals, and it should be possible to measure the result of your activities. We are obviously aware of the problems that we face, and we realize that we will face a lot of setbacks in our efforts. We know that we make a lot of mistakes, but we made the pledge to try to learn from the experiences and all the mistakes that all our friends in other institutes have been collecting. That's why we are very conscious also of the partnership with other international foundations, and so that we can share our experiences and share our failures. For that reason, I'm also very pleased to take part in this seminar, so hopefully I can learn a lot. The selection of countries and the parties with which to build up relations has been a very serious first task, and as I said, we've chosen quite a few countries to sort of concentrate our activities. The Institute itself is about to launch activities in Nepal, and we have started up in Egypt, and the political parties who are already up and going are starting out in Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Egypt, Bolivia and Honduras. We're in a stage where we are gathering our very first experiences, but already we know that we'll face some of the classical challenges. Too often the parties we're talking with are based on ethnic divides or geographic rather than political platforms. One party domination is always an imminent danger. Parties sometimes are run in an unusually authoritarian fashion. The partnership often exclude women or young people. The party structure is volatile. Populism is dominant, and sometimes the quality of party leadership is poor or even corrupt. These are challenges we must deal with in our programs. We should remember that it's ironic that we do absolutely know these difficulties from our own countries. It's not limited to the developing countries. One does not have to reflect long to realize that our own multi-party democracies often suffer from some of these same deficiencies. This is actually a good reminder that the work we engage in is a two-way process. Successful sister party cooperation or partnership produce experiences and benefits that should work both ways. The act that established DIPD laid out that the board should also be scrutinized very effectively, since after all we are spending the taxpayers' money. Just to give you a few ideas how we are set up, we have a board of 15 people. 9 are elected by Parliament. 9 of these come from, as I said, from the political parties. 2 from the youth organizations. 1 from academia. 1 is an international expert appointed by the minister. 1 from the community of NGOs in Denmark, and 1 from our Center of International Studies and Human Rights. So that makes up 15 members, and I'm glad to say that among these 15 members there are 3 members of liberal parties which are members of the ELDR and Liberal International. 1 is a member of a newly formed Liberal Party which might enter our Liberal International family, and 1 is from the Young Liberals. So at least 5 of the board members are closely related to the political family which is gathered here today. My own party, Venstre, has established its own institute, which we call the Danish Liberal Democracy Program, DLPD. It involves a number of people, which I'm sure some of you know. The president is Bo Jensen, who used to be the Secretary General of the ELDR Secretariat in Brussels. The other one is the former Minister for Development, Ulla Tørnes, and the Foreign Affairs spokesman of the Liberal Party, Carsten Lauritsen. And associated to this committee is, among other people, Ellen Trane Nørby, who some of you knows, and myself. The Radikale Venstre, which is the other ELDR party, is represented by Henning Nielsen, who's also a very well-known figure in Liberal International. So, just to make a few comments in summing up. I'm sure that when it comes to our efforts at promoting democratic parties, we want to show, and we must show, respect of political and cultural diversity. There's no ideal model for democracy, including multi-party democracies. There is no one-size-fits-all. I think that's an important outset for all of us. And could I just say then about the process of starting up activities in Denmark? We have realized that it's a very new thing for most of the political parties. The political parties do not have people who are paid to work with these issues. Political parties generally concentrate on national affairs. Most party general secretaries, they would rather spend their money winning national elections rather than developing sister parties abroad. So without public support, this work would never have started out. We've also realized that simply we have to start from the beginning, developing the knowledge and the relations in our parties to simply have the capital of knowledge to start this work. We've been blessed by a very consensus-oriented attitude among the Danish parties to start this work together. So the parties are actually sharing their sort of country studies and their first experiences so that it can be for the benefit of all of us. So, in summing up, as I said, we are still in the beginning of our activities. We've already gathered a number of interesting experiences, and as we're talking, the Liberal Party in Denmark, which has been at the forefront of these activities, are actually receiving their first delegation of sister party colleagues from Kenya, which I'll be meeting tomorrow. So, as I said, we are still at the beginning, but the enthusiasm is very great, and I'm sure, I hope, but I'm also sure, that in a couple of years we'll be joining this family of foundation with a lot more experience and more inputs to share with you. Thank you.